Welcome to a new episode of the Creative Industry Insight podcast. I'm your host, Bobby. Today, we welcome costume designer Maja Meschede, who joins us to talk about their work on the second series of 1,000 Blows. Maja will talk us through the creative decisions made to create the costumes on the show. Please be warned that there are heavy spoilers in this episode. Now let's jump into the conversation with Maja. Hi, Maja. Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm excited to sit down and talk about 1,000 Blows Season 2, which has just come out recently on Disney Plus and Hulu. How have you found the reaction to the new series?
Been really positive. So friends of mine and family contacted me and were just saying how amazing it looks, what a great story it is, how deeply character-led it is. And yeah, but really positive reactions, also visually, which is always nice to hear.
I guess as well, when you have people who are giving compliments, especially family, because I think sometimes it's very difficult to get family members to watch projects that you might be working on because everybody's got such different taste, and sometimes they might be like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to do this, or if I don't."
Exactly, and what I also like about friends and families' reactions is they're always really honest. They're not trying to compliment you or make you feel better. They're just, especially my family, I was brutally honest. So when they say like it's fantastic, well done, yeah, it means a lot to me.
That's good, and I think that always helps, and it's nice as well because then your family members understand what you do as a job as well, and when they see your work.
Yes, exactly. My family live abroad. I'm originally from Germany. I've lived in England and the UK for 26 years now. Can't believe it, but 26 years, and they live far away. So it's really nice to share with them what I do. To show them here, this is what I'm doing every day. This is what I feel passionate about, and yeah, it connects us.
Yeah, and then it's also, I guess, with like having something like that, you kind of get to, I guess, your family also get to see the sort of creativity on the screen and like what you want to add to a show and what you want to bring to it, especially when it's like a period drama, because I guess with like contemporary, you can play around with what the characters wear, but then I guess with a period drama, you can show so much more what the characters are like, especially with like their the status and where they're from, and especially like when you see in the first episode, like the sort of disguises and how they want to present themselves as well.
Totally, because in 1,000 Blows, like all characters in all stories, but because, as you said, because it's period costume, and these people are defined by their circumstances, their environment, what they're fighting for. And then costume, it's really fun, and I can be so creative and show ways of expressing, their aspirations, their hopes, their dreams, their reality, and yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I do think as well, like it's nice, like as a viewer as well, when you're seeing these costumes, because you served as a costume designer for series one as well, and having coming back for season two, why did you decide to come back? Was it a case of I just enjoyed working with the team so much that I want to do this again, or and then also because the bar is so like set so high in the first series, how do you then jump over it and then also set it even higher?
So first of all, we did season 1 and 2 back to back. It was really intense. But even if we hadn't done it back to back, and they would have asked me, we had a break, and then they would have asked me to come back, I would have done so, because I really love the story of Mary Carr of the 40 Elephants. I was really moved and touched by it, and also Hezekiah's story, coming from Jamaica all the way to London, at that time being a Black man and becoming world champion, boxing world champion. That's so incredibly remarkable, right? Especially at that time, these women defying poverty and, you know, torture and workhouses. It really moved me, the story. And I want, even now, if we are hopefully we are doing season 3, hopefully we continue. I so want to be part of it, because especially after season 1 and season 2 now, I feel so connected with the characters, and it's really important to me, being a costume designer, not to just do very decorative costume, but to dig deep and to really find, you know, these character traits and express them, you know, and show the audience like, this is Mary Carr, this is, you know, this amazing, brave society, you know, defying woman in Victorian times. And yeah, I would love to do season 3. Yeah, so hopefully.
I think they will sort something out, I reckon, because it's always, I think they like to make people wait a bit and make them sweat that something's not going to happen. And yeah, they decide to then be like, actually, yeah, we'll do it. It's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
But of course, you'll be passionate about what you do. But even when you're with your answer there, it feels like you really like to make your costumes as part of the characters as well. With the show being shot back to back, which can be intense, and I can imagine as like a design point, it can kind of be a bit difficult because you're thinking about sort of season 1, but then also in the back of your mind there'll be season 2 about how can something affect what we're doing in season 1 to season 2. How do you go about creating the costumes in terms of thinking about the characters and building up from it, but then also thinking about the progression of those characters over both season 1 and 2?
But there's always, I always work really closely with producers, the director, and of course the production designer and makeup designer. But what's really important is that we're all aware what the character arc will be. And sometimes actually that we don't know what will exactly happen, because sometimes, you know, the writers are still writing in the writing rooms and figuring out the story arc or character arc. So, but on 1,000 Blows, I was lucky enough to know that this is Mary Carr's journey, this is Hezekiah's journey, this is how they all evolve in a way. So it's really, really important to know what's happening. Otherwise, it becomes a bit superficial, and I always want to avoid that. And the hardest thing when you're doing 2 seasons, you know, back to back, or even, you know, you're filming abroad, and you have to be there in the moment and make sure that the characters and costumes that, you know, are going to be on the set the next day, that's all working really well for everyone, that the actors are happy, that they're comfortable, that the director is happy. And but in the back of your mind, you're already preparing, you know, the week after. So time is always a big challenge, you know. It brings the best out, I think, in me. I can only speak for myself, because I'm really very focused, and yeah, I work very hard, and and because of this focus, I'm able to do hopefully a good job.
Yes, and I can, like, again, with the planning, as you're saying, like, brings the best out of people, but then also with something like that where, you know, you're thinking you can't, it feels like sometimes you can't be in the present because you're constantly, what's it called? You're constantly thinking ahead and trying to think, actually, next week, that's going to be a big scene where we have a lot of extras. So we're going to have to think about what the extras are going to wear. But then also we're going to have a big fight scene. So then I have to think about the before and after of outfits, because you're going to have, you know, ones, you know, they're going to be sweaty, they're going to be bloody, they're going to have maybe something else coming off them, maybe blood from another person, and it's like the continuity of that, which will be very, I can imagine it's quite difficult to sort of keep on top of as well.
So people like me, a costume designer, only manages to do a great job with a great team behind me, you know, like the assistant designers, the supervisor, the crowd supervisor, all the people doing fittings. And it's a lot about letting go. So, and to be also very organized. like on 1,000 Blows, we had daily meetings like with the supervisor Claudia Sabu and the assistant designers, and to plan the day, to plan the week ahead. And you can only sometimes think as far as the next hours or the day, you know, you have to do it bit by bit, because you have to be in the moment and you have to do what you can on the day, if you know what I mean, despite planning ahead, you know. So we plan ahead, but you have to be in the moment. Otherwise, what you produce that day isn't really good enough. Do you know what I mean? And with the team, with an amazing team, also the workrooms, the cutters, the seamstresses, the breakdown teams were so important to a costume design, and doing a great job. All these people always really support me, and they get my ideas. You know, I always like to work with the same people, like most designers, you know, because then you feel safe, you speak the same design language, and you know each other, and it feels like family as well. So yeah, with a great team, it's all manageable, and also it's also meant to be fun. You know, you're also supposed to come in every day and enjoy what you're doing, and know how privileged we are to be able to do this kind of storytelling and to do something really creative and amazing. Yeah.
And I think as well, with part of like working as a team, because as you said, you spend so much time with one another, and I can imagine that like you basically become, you don't want to sort of annoy one another from what you're doing, but at the same time you want to make sure that you get what you need to do and get across idea wise. But then also I guess like what also take away from your answer as well is the you're saying about letting go, and when you're working with people, as a costume designer, like on something like this, how do you let go and let people flow with their ideas, and how do you sort of communicate your ideas with the rest of your team?
It's a really good question. I start off, you know, on my own, doing extensive research, and finding out what does the costume need to be authentic, and then you go from there. What does the costume need to make it comfortable for the actor and actresses? And I mainly drape on the stand. When I have time, I draw, but I take fabrics. I buy lots of antique fabrics, for example, on 1,000 Blows, to make it feel real and authentic, and drape on the stand. And then I show my team, the supervisor, the assistant designers, how I would like the costume to feel, how I would like the fabrics to move, how it needs to feel. And from that moment on, you know, of course, my team asks me questions, and it's important to be just really clear in my communication what I want, and it's not just done with one meeting. I get asked questions all day till at the end of the day I'm so tired I can't even talk anymore. It's really intense, but in a good way. And by being really clear, and then of course letting my team do their job, the assistant designers go away and let's find a beautiful fabric or find amazing antique buttons or something. I'll allow them to do their job, and the supervisor as well. I allow the supervisor to get on what she is really good at doing. And I think by letting go and letting people do their job without micromanaging them and being too controlling, I think it's more fun for everyone to work. It's less exhausting for me because you can't control everything and you can't micromanage. I mean, you need to leave a job after a few months because you're totally exhausted. That doesn't work from an energy point of view, but also you allow people to thrive and do what they really enjoy doing and what they're really good at. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I think as well, like you have to manage people and you have to sort of push them along, but then also
Yeah.
you have to manage yourself as well, because there's a lot when it comes to filmmaking as well. There's a lot of pressure to it,
Yeah.
and I think sometimes, even as audience members, we will see the final film, TV show, and whatnot, and but you don't realize like that day 5, for example, was the toughest day on the shoot because you had 1,000 extras to dress, but then also you had main actors doing stunts, so you had to make sure that they had the stunt ready outfits, because they had their principal outfits, then it rips, then you might be in trouble for the next day.
There's always very often something happens that's totally unforeseen, but what I try to explain is that if within the costume department we communicate really well, like our needs, and I communicate really well, look, this needs to be done by tomorrow, or they've pushed the day, it needs to be done a day sooner than it was meant to be. We hopefully can get some extra help in. That might never happen. We might have to do some overtime, which nobody really wants to do, but sometimes you have to. And there is always, of course, a lot of pressure, but you keep people, and sometimes you have days or a week where everybody is more quiet because everyone's exhausted, of course that happens. But by being a really good communicator, and you don't just start costume designing and you're there, the best communicator and everything runs smoothly. It's a learning curve, right, over the years. But I'm just trying to look after myself and the team at the same time. And then, even if you have a big day with like 1,000 extras, you prepare for it. You make sure you have dailies and, people who come and help. So it doesn't break your backbone, so yeah. It's all possible.
And I think as well, like when you're working on all of those sort of things, I can imagine after a job that you do need a break, just because it's what's it called, so taxing for the mind as well, that you're sort of sitting there, and creatively could be quite draining in what you're doing. And it can be quite a lot, but I guess with a team as well, like you'll handpick people or go by people's recommendations. That probably would help in what you're doing as well, to make sure that you get over the line.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's important for one's mental health and physical health to have a little break and to also be able to create again. But the nature of the beast is not like that. Often jobs overlap. Like in the last years, it has happened that my jobs overlap by a couple of weeks or months. But luckily, the job I'm already on is kind of coming to an end, and things become often much easier towards the end, because the project, the characters, and it's often done that way. And prep for the new project also starts, it's easier, it's more gentle. And it unfortunately doesn't work like that, let's say I would need like a month off, which would be for me, myself, ideal. If I have too much time off, I'm like, okay, I want to do something. I want to create something because, I enjoy it so much. Yeah, it just doesn't work like that. Either often projects overlap or you're not working for half a year. That's my experience, when you turn something down to have a break. But, everybody has a different experience that way. But I feel very blessed. There's always something around the corner. People approach me and ask me if I would like to join them, telling a specific story. So I feel incredibly blessed, incredibly lucky to be able to do that, to be able to do what I love. But you're right there. One has to look after oneself, find a way.
Yeah, 100%. And it's always important to look after oneself regarding all of that as well. What so going back to the show themselves as well, because I feel like in the show color does play a very big part, and you yourself have worked on a number of period pieces, period dramas, sorry. Where do you begin when you think about color in a show like this? Because when you have an era like this looking in time, I can imagine you could think about stuff where it could be actually quite dark and gloomy, and you can have something that's like they're always going to be covered in soot. But I feel like here, especially with the
40
thank you, they're very like bold, and it's very sort of like eye catching, and it kind of you would think that sometimes something like that might not work in a show like this before some show, but it does, and it just fits so well in the whole show. So how do you begin looking at colors, and are there colors that you would like to associate with people, or is it more of like a status thing with color?
For me, it's more an emotional state, right? Rather than something purely aesthetic. First of all, before we had electric light, especially, more the upper class, of course, the ladies had, clothes made from silk or cotton or wool, and they were dyed into quite bright colors. So when I start out, I always contact these wonderful antique dealers I work with a lot, and buy a lot of pieces that I feel like might be right emotionally, for the show. Whether it's color, it's a shape, it's a specific button, it's a specific lace. And then I first look what really happened, like what is the truth, what is authentic. And when we think about Victorian times, I think the first thought is, oh, it's all gloomy, it's all dark, it's brown and gray and beige and really earthy and dirty. No, there was also a lot of color. Yes, of course, more for the wealthy part of the society. But I wanted to express for the 40 elephants specifically, who women, they were born into poverty. Some of them had to endure workhouses and luckily survived. Some of them, were tortured and had the most horrendous upbringing. And these women survived by becoming excellent thieves. They're very smart. They're also physically very strong. I wouldn't want to mess with them. And I wanted to express their character, how they psychologically are, with the color of the costume, so it's very emotional, the color. It's not a class thing. And I thought, like, the bright purple on Liza, or the deep bright blues and reds on Mary Carr, they really express how bold these ladies are, how brave and how emancipated, despite, Victorian times where women were oppressed, didn't have many rights. So yeah, it's very emotional, if that makes sense. Yeah. And wanted to have an energy that the audience can feel. And by using these bright colors, I also wanted to, bring the audience closer, subconsciously even, to empathize with the character, to understand their state of mind, or their actions, their choices, the choices they make. So yeah, it comes from, it's very psychological. That's where it's rooted to me.
So again, like there's so much that goes into color, like you forget, like psychological wise, that for me, blue is blue. It's easy, and like navy blue, especially for man, it's like very easy to wear. But I guess when you have like a show like this where you can you want to add another layer to the character and with their energy and how they're feeling and what's going on. I think when you see the first episode of the second series where they're in the bank and Mary's wearing like a nice red, it kind of feels that sort of like she's in sort of going in for the danger zone and going to going in. And I would have thought like that's very like a very bold and specific color, but I feel like as well now, like listening to your answer, it now sort of makes sense, and it kind of gives me a better understanding and feeling of like the design choices and what you were going for.
Yeah, and I agree. It's associated with danger, with, her being a very confident woman, being very visible, kind of hiding in plain sight, because these very expensive clothes she wears, they're made from silk, from wool. Silk makes, beautiful lace and embroideries when you touch. This is something Mary Carr couldn't afford. She stole it. And she uses these stolen dresses and jackets and coats and shoes and handbags and hats as her work, like working wardrobe, to disguise in plain sight, to pretend, hey, I'm a very wealthy lady here. I'm not Mary Carr anymore. and she cons people that way. And she's, of course, because she's so confident, she's very convincing. And what I also did, all the dresses that she wears when she's dressed up to steal something or to go to Harrods or to go to the bank, wherever she's working, in inverted commas, I also made sure that the dresses are quite broken down, that they're quite, the hems are dirty. It's all a bit crunchy. It's not freshly steamed as it would be if a wealthy lady from the West End was wearing these clothes, right? So we feel that she's reusing them again and again. She has this wardrobe with some dresses, and then she combines them in different ways to pretend to be someone else. Yeah, that was also very important to me, that it doesn't feel new, and that when you look twice, there's something a bit off, if that makes sense. It's a masquerade. It's a dress up.
Yes, and I think as well, like you can think, again, as like a designer, there's probably quite a fun way of doing stuff, because you say it's like you're dressing up within a dress up, but then also, as you said, like the charade of it, of like something could be slightly off on it, but no one will notice until it's too late, or it's a blink and you'll miss it, sort of thing. Which again is like, that's such a cool way to think of a character and how to sort of add to it, really. And I do like that sort of idea to it. But then, as you said, with a dress up, I can imagine as well that they can probably mix and match various clothes. And it was also that, like the what is it, like the, if they can't afford certain clothes, I can imagine that they'll be wearing like the sort of knockoff fake versions of it, but it'd be so good that people don't realize that it's fake.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't even be able to make something, have something made, because of course they're successful thieves, but still, it's like living from the hand. In German we say that, I don't know if you said it in English, living from the hand to the mouth, like they rob a bank, they give away the jewelry, and they make a bit of money from it, they divide it up, and I don't think there never seemed to be enough to be really wealthy, right? So the clothes were stolen. And I also was thinking that red, I forgot to say that earlier, it's also not about beauty for America, right? It's about dominance and deception. She's so good at it. She's so powerful. And a lot, I think, I wanted the audience to perceive, maybe subconsciously, you feel a certain way, but you don't know why, and you wonder, like, And I quite like that psychological play. I think it's fun.
Yeah, and that's just a part of the gambit as well. Like, you don't want to root for the bad guys, but there's just something about them that lures you in, and you're just kind of, for some strange reason, you're just there and you're enjoying it, and you enjoy their antics, or their cons, or what they're coming up with the robberies as well. I don't know, it's just something that's always going to be, I don't want to say enjoyable, because it makes it sound like you're not condoning what they're doing, but it's something that just lures you in, and you just can't help it. What I'm curious to know about as well is, did you manage, for the costumes, were a lot of them custom built, or did you decide to rent the garments out from different costume houses?
So most, I would say 99% of the principal actors' costumes are all handmade, and most of them have lots of antique elements in them. It's some antique fabrics I was able to use because they've survived 150 years. Yeah, the laces, the buttons, the velvet ribbons. That's all antique. That's really truly Victorian. So it's all handmade. There might be the odd hat, or even the shoes were handmade in Canada. The hats were made. There might be maybe one or two hats, or none of the dresses that the principal cast wore are from a higher place like Cosprop or Angels. we dressed the as extras in hired costumes. But for example, one of my favorite scenes, and it's a shame it's so short, it's in episode 1 of season 2, is the Halloween scene, and we made all these costumes as well from hand, and that was so much fun because the way they dressed up these Victorians was so fabulous. There's a woman who's dressed as a paper bin, and we just dressed her in paper, and I gave her this beautiful checked white dress, and it was so much fun. It was, I think, in the for a minute, but very beautiful. So everything was made apart from the extras, the SA's costumes. They were hired.
Okay, cool. And that's again amazing that you're still using fabric from such a long time. Is there a way that you have to be a lot more delicate with it, with how you're sewing on the ribbons and the buttons, just because would they not be when you're touching them, like they could not be it's not delicate, but they could, because they're so old, they might
break, or they might be frail.
Might break. Yeah, thank you.
I only use what's in good condition, and also items like the accessories, like buttons or some of the ribbons, and they were made to last a lifetime. So some of the quality of the items from 150 years ago is much better quality than what we make today. I think an old button can be stronger than a new one, when you have new bed sheets and you take them out of the washing machines and all the buttons are broken in half. That's really bad quality, whereas these no, that was all really fine to handle. I wouldn't ever use, what I'm careful with is I wouldn't use silk, because silk after such a long time and being exposed to light breaks, so you can't do that. But cottons and wool, and it's good to use, yes. And as I said, the quality from 150 years ago is often much better than what we produce today, sadly.
And when you have quality like that, does it still amaze you that it's still so strong and so well sort of versatile and durable?
It makes me really, I feel really excited. Like I got really into collecting Civil War buttons from America, and lots of Hezekiah's buttons, old buttons from bone, and beautiful and metal, and really beautiful pieces. And I think they finish a costume off in the most amazing way, because it just adds to the energy of the costume, now being Victorian, being authentic, despite touching a modern audience. And I also think, like, I'm sure most people will think this way, like, gosh, why can't we make things to last longer, and let's all be more environment friendly, you know what I mean, and keep throwing away less and just keep something for a long time.
Yes. So with just going back to the buttons, then the sort of Civil War era ones, how do you even go about looking for those and finding those? Do you just scour the web, or do you go to conventions or exhibitions? And are there any ones that you particularly catch your eye that you like?
I have a big collection of antique clothes, like pieces that I find inspiring, that are very, very beautiful. If it's men's old waistcoats, I have a lot of buttons and buckles because they're hard to get by. So I go to antique markets. I speak with wonderful, very talented antique dealers in France, in England, in Italy, and Germany, and in Belgium as well. And also sometimes Etsy or eBay is good. You just look for Victorian buttons, and then a lot of stuff comes up, and a lot of stuff is like newly made and pretends to be old. And sometimes that works as well, because it's done really well and beautifully. But that's the internet, but mainly antique dealers.
Again, amazing, just like being able to reuse all of that. But then also you're talking about how some of them are made out of bone, and just how it's kind of like, I wouldn't say like gross, but there's also just like amazing what you used to do.
Yeah, it looks like plastic. So only if you know what was used at the time, then you know it's bone. It's just, you know. But then again, you know, people, you know, animal was, you eat an animal and they use everything. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think that's that.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? And it's very clean. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. I always just think, I guess it's just because you don't, I guess in like a 21st century mind, you don't really think about it. And then
Mhm.
when somebody points it out, you think, wow, like that is gross. But then also, as you said, they use so much of an animal, but then also just how long something like that would last for, like,
Mhm.
and how like how durable it is compared to, I don't know, say a button now.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's yeah, it lasted 150 years or 180. That's good.
Yeah, it's to another 150. What I'm curious to know about as well is like the collaboration with actors, because as actors, they probably have something in mind of how the actor's going to move and feel in the costumes. How do you go about discussing your ideas and their ideas and creating it into one? Because also you want your actor to feel comfortable in the material, but then also you want them to be able to move as well. Because I can imagine that, like, with like those times, the outfits that people used to wear could be quite tight and very sort of hard to sort of breathe and be so flexible and movable in them.
I always work with the actor. I feel like if I worked against the actor and their feeling, I wouldn't do my job well. Of course, I always have a very strong vision. But what I do is I meet the actor when possible, very early, and we start talking about. I show them my research, maybe some drawings. I'll always have fabrics there, some accessories, and we just play with them. And we look together like, hey, what colors suit you? You know, and make sure that the actor feels comfortable. I always incorporate their ideas. I would never work against an actor. Sometimes, you know, we walk in the room and we feel very different, but it's not about anyone's ego. It's about finding the truth of the story and the character. So we always go back to the story, and then we always find common ground, you know, and it's always really positive. Yeah, so I collaborate with them. I make sure it's comfortable. And I make sure I support the actor as much as I possibly can, so they feel like, yeah, they feel like they become this character also visually, you know. That's and when they say that to me, like, oh Maya, I feel great in this is, let's say, Monika, this is you know, Hezekiah, then I feel like, oh, great, I've done my job all right, you know. And also, of course, at that time, women especially wore corsets. Some actors love the idea of being in a corset and it being as tight as they feel it's comfortable. I often get told, like, oh, this really makes me feel like the character. This makes me feel like I'm traveling back in time. I feel like how a woman must have felt and held herself, and also feel the difficulties connected with a corset because breathing is hard. And there are some actors who want to be a bit more comfortable. So we, for example, put elastic in the sides of a corset, or we, you know, get a soft corset. That's not the historical corset, but as long as it's out of vision, you know, you can cheat. You can create a silhouette and it looks beautiful and authentic from the outside. But at the same time, the actor feels comfortable, you know, that it is different from, you know, every person's different. And yeah, it's just really important to respect how they feel, you know, and then it always is really great collaboration.
And I guess as well, like, you kind of think about they could also say stuff to you that you might not have thought about, or that could actually sort of click in your mind creatively and be like, yeah, that's actually a good suggestion. And then they could also admire your work because they're looking at it and thinking, oh, I didn't think about it being this color, or maybe the way that this dress sort of floaty about this sort of way. And then also during fittings, they're probably looking in the mirror and like getting into the zone of their character and thinking, yeah, this is me, this is who I'm going to be, and probably helps them in their process further along when they're doing rehearsals and then on the day of the shoot as well.
Yeah, totally. To me, when it is possible, so when I'm able to meet the actor, in, say, a few days, a week, or a few weeks in advance of, when the costume has to be ready and the actor's, on set and we're filming, then it's a really beautiful, wholesome, creative process. Of course, sometimes one disagrees, but there's always a common ground. And I think disagreeing doesn't mean that it's something negative. It really makes you step out of the fitting room and think about it. And, it just opens a different path, maybe slightly different direction, which is maybe much, much better, once we found common ground despite having a different opinion. It sometimes also happens with a director or production designer and makeup design. And then we discuss it, and because we all want the same, we want to tell the story as truthfully as we can, and it's a good thing as well.
I was curious to know as well, like what are the sort of challenges when you're working on something where you have something very specific like 19th century boxing and what they would wear in the ring? Because like at the moment, as like modern audiences, you have an idea of like the big shorts, the guards, the boxing gloves, but I can imagine all those years ago it would have been very, very different.
Yeah, so we are lucky to have research. There were just really amazing, or there are really amazing boxing advertisement posters, where you could see the kind of breeches or very fitted trousers, that just reach below the knee. This is what men were wearing. They look very much like underwear, like the modern long johns. And they were very fitted leather shoes to be really light and to be very agile on the feet, to be able to move quickly and controlled. What was the challenge was, recreating the boxing gloves, because they look like huge kidneys. We had so many fittings with all our gentlemen who were boxing, Stephen Graham and Malachi especially, and we had to make them, construct them in a way that they were comfortable, because the way they were actually shaped, and I had an original pair there, they were really uncomfortable actually. And they could give you actually blisters. So yeah, that was quite a challenge, but we mastered it. Men wore kinds of long johns, like trousers, and they were actually from knitted wool or knitted cotton, because in the early 1800s, people started knitting, on big knitting looms to knit underwear. And, long johns and T-shirts and long sleeve tops. So, yeah, it gave the gentleman a good movement, And the other thing is, like, if you don't have the research, then you just make it up. You know what I mean? You do your best and see what's sensible and what would make sense. And, you approach it from that angle. But, yeah, in this case, we did have brilliant research,
When you do have like certain material like cotton, like being like sewn into it and making these outfits from there, is there a fear that you might think that, like, because they're boxing, they're moving around, is that going to be the right material to react to like them sweating, or even if hair and makeup come in and use sort of liquids to exaggerate the sweating and how they're feeling?
So we always make for these kind of action scenes, boxing scenes, they are of course sweating, there will be blood, there'll be some injuries. We always have multiple trousers and shoes and some multiple gloves to be able to film continuously and not have to stop and clean everything. And, fingers crossed, we might not be able to clean it all off. Happens sometimes. So yeah, we always have everything double. And yeah, the cotton was all, because it was all knitted, it was all elastic, so which was great.
That's still cool, and like having the elastic and probably helps them with their movement as well with stunts. Probably makes it slightly more breathable as well. I think as well, like with stunt stuff, like I can imagine that it can be kind of difficult thinking, oh, for this scene that you might need like 5 different pairs, because within the day they will you will have like a couple of different people using those costumes, because they will be sort of dipping in and out of, if it's going to be the main actor to then being the stunt double to then back to the main actor, and then how they're going to be moving in it, especially with like boxing as well, because they're constantly sort of shuffling around the ring and going in circles, and there's a sort of feels like there's constant movement with them.
Yeah, there is. And of course, this is, it's like a dance, boxing, isn't it? It's like it's very well choreographed, and it's a lot of work and passion went into the choreography of doing it all beautifully. And yeah, we have to also make sure that the stunt double doesn't only move the same way, but also the shape, the muscle tone and everything is very similar to be convincing, and then the rest, like fitting a costume on the stunt double, is easy, it's more complicated if the body shapes are different, and then we have to use our tricks to make it look the same, that also sometimes happens. And yeah, we have certain techniques, and the more you've done it, the easier it is then.
Yes, and of course, like it's amazing as well to think that you have to think about like their body shape as well. Like I guess for like when they're on camera, they need to think about the different shots that they'll have to use so that it looks like it's the same person. But I guess with a costume as well, it's just, oh, he could have his muscles might be a lot, his thigh muscles might be a lot bigger than the principal cast. So then we probably might need to make it slightly bigger so it looks the same on both of them, but you kind of have to hide certain areas as well.
Yeah, totally. It's always a collaboration between the stunt coordinator, the stunt guy, the actor, director, and it's costume and hair makeup. It's always a big collaboration. Yeah. And again, it's down to communicating really clearly and having a bit of time to work it all out, so it there's harmony and it goes smoothly on the day.
Yeah, and again, the stress I can imagine with it if it's not going smoothly, then how quickly you need to scramble to do what you need to do.
Yeah. But again, if the team is great and experienced, and we sadly have been in a similar situation maybe before, in another project, and we always learn from that. And then we also, even on the day, if something feels really tricky and challenging, all you can do is you stay calm and make a plan really, really quickly, but you need to stay calm and just do what you can. We also can only do what we can. We're not magicians. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
It is what it is. And if we can't do something so it works, the scene has to be reshot, or it has to be done another day. Do you know what I mean? We have to do some pickups, and that has happened as well. But as long as my team is prepared as much as we can and we got everything there, sometimes it is out of our hands.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just rolling with the punches, excuse the pun, and seeing how it goes. Just to hit you up with my final question, what was your favorite costume to design?
On 1,000 Blows, my favorite costume. Does it have to be season 2, or?
You know what? Because you did it back to back, I think you're allowed to choose something from season 1, because they would have been, even though it's 2 seasons, it probably would have been done as one, wouldn't it?
So I like, it's really, there's not only one. I like Monika costume, you know, the arsenic green one when she, in season 1, the opening scene, when she pretends to be a wealthy lady is giving birth on a market. I love that costume so much because it's so powerful, so bold, and yes, so authentic, but really, really modern. I love that very much. And I also love her costume in season 2, the stripy blouse worn with a blue velvet corset. I find that also really powerful, and especially there's a scene where she walks up the stairs to Sugar Goodson's bedroom, and the wallpapers are this really soft green, and that's such a beautiful scene, and I love that very much. I love it, and it's so important to work closely with the production designer on 4,000 Blows. It's the amazing Thomas Burton, and we work really well together. So it's really, when it's in harmony, you know, that I love very much, when it all makes sense and these characters are really part of that world we're creating, and it all is in harmony or disharmony when it's meant to be, you know. And I also love Laos costumes very much. You know, it's Hakka Chinese, and I managed to find some authentic, beautiful Chinese old fabrics. We made them some beautiful garments. And also one of my favorites is Mary Carr's mom, Jane Carr. You know, she loves her birds more than Mary. She's always dressed in black, and you know, added feathers to her costume. So she's almost like a crow, or like a blackbird herself. She's quite dark. Yet she, you know, she seems to be this really dark soul, but actually she's own very vulnerable and just, you know, it's a hard shell and soft interior. And I love her costume very much. Yeah.
They're all very solid choices, and I think, like,
Thank you.
as audience members, we are very blessed to be able to see your work and see it all come to life on screen, and especially with like the ideas, the colors, and it's all very beautiful. So hats off to you and your team.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for, taking the time to speak with me.
No, it should stop
Pleasure.
around. No, thank you so much for taking time to speak to me. 1,000 Blows season 2 is streaming now on Disney Plus and Hulu. Go out and watch and look at and admire Maja and her team's excellent work. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
You take care, and bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.